Today, the existence or non-existence of God keeps being one of the hottest debated topics. There are hundreds of groups on Facebook, books, articles, TV shows, YouTube channels, debate forums on the web. Secular organizations deal solely with the quest of God's existence. Theists and atheists meet, each side providing reasons for why they believe or do not believe in God. The quest of God's existence is probably as old as humanity and the most fundamental of all. The worldview we adopt shapes our values, morals, and provides us with answers in regards of the meaning of our existence and our origins. There were always tribes and people without a belief in the supernatural whatsoever. In modern history, the Age of Enlightenment, in the period of the French Revolution, starting in the late 18th century, catapulted atheism and opened the way for the 19th century movements of rationalism, free thought, and humanism. Marx claimed that the oppressed working class was using religion to create a dream world. He claimed that man creates religion does not create man. Nietzsche proclaimed that God is dead. Feuerbach criticized Christianity and advanced ideas of materialism. State atheism took it violently on theism, faith, and religion. Under more recent regimes of the 19th century, for example under Russia led by Stalin and China by Mao, many believers were tortured, imprisoned, and killed for their religious beliefs. In this century, the number of unbelievers and atheists in the Western world has increased, and many organizations defend all kinds of flavors of atheism, ranging from agnosticism, weak atheism, strong atheism, free thinking, skepticism, humanism, and the list goes on. Many defend their views vehemently and elaborate sophisticated etiological arguments which supposedly back up the view that either the natural world is all there is or that there is simply not sufficient evidence of God's existence. Some go to the length of claiming that it's justified keeping an agnostic position of not knowing about the origins. We don't know, but science is working on it. These are today very commonly seen arguments from the no God hypothesis camp. But is it justified? I argue that it's not. I think George Washington Carver brought it beautifully to the point. I love to think of nature as an unlimited broadcasting station through which God speaks to us every hour if we will only tune in. Could it be that the problem is not lack of evidence of God's existence, but the lack of willingness to tune in? That is, to put all bias aside and trying to give honest consideration to the evidence that eventually points to God? By the educational system in the West, but also, for example, communist China, natural science built upon the foundation not only of methodological but as well as philosophical naturalism, affirming the existence of the universe and beings and events inside deserve only explanations of origins by natural means. That the supernatural or intelligence should be excluded a priori as a possible causal agency since God's intervening cannot be tested. This ignores the fact that historical events altogether cannot be repeated in the laboratory and are not conducive to scientific study and testing. The environmental conditions back in the past are not known. Creation is a possible explanation and should never have been excluded a priori in sciences dealing with historical events, but considered and compared side by side to natural explanations. Stephen Hawking declared famously, "One can't prove that God doesn't exist, but science makes God unnecessary." And Lawrence Krauss claimed in an interview with Suzanne Mazur, "Science is incompatible with the doctrines of the world's major religions." As Steven Weinberg commented, "Science does not make it impossible to believe in God, it just makes it possible to not believe in God. Once you have science, you realize that God becomes unnecessary." So is science on the side of atheism then? In other words, is science, and should it be essentially materialistic? Is there a dispute between science and religion? Let me cite Carver. He has been described as the most important evolution scientist of the 20th century. Someone else said that Wöse did more for biology than any biologist in history, including Darwin. Wöse was the discoverer of the third domain of life. His pioneering efforts defined a completely different type of primordial cell, known as archaea. In October 2012, in what appears to be his last public interview, he answered to Suzanne Mazur, "I do not like people saying that atheism is based on science, because it's not. It's an alien invasion of science." What does that mean? Norman Geisler said, "The creation-evolution debate is not religion versus science, or the Bible versus science. It's about good science versus bad science. Likewise, it's not faith versus reason. It's about reasonable faith versus unreasonable faith." God's existence cannot be proven empirically, but we can come to informed conclusions when we base our inquiry on a sound epistemological framework. The best methodology to make meaningful inferences and conclude the best, most accurate worldview is based on the current wealth of knowledge of operational and historical sciences, philosophy, and theological considerations. One must have the disposition to analyze the evidence as much honest and unbiased as possible, permitting the evidence to lead wherever it is. An unbiased starting point for inquiry of worldviews and explanations of origins is essential in order to come as close as possible to gain a realistic understanding of reality, the most probable truth of ultimate reality that includes physics and metaphysics. That means proper understanding of science, philosophical and theological explanations, and searching for truth without eliminating possible theistic implications a priori. The two main points of inquiry are if there is a direct revelation expressed in one of the existing religions that is trustworthy, and if the physical natural world points to a creator or not. If there is a conversion of the three faculties into one predominant direction, which tops the other. One approach is first to make an inquiry in a search to find answers if there are signs and signatures of the past action of a creator in the natural world or not. For that, we need to know what constitutes evidence and signature of design, and the past action of intelligence. When we say something is designed, we mean it as created intentionally and planned for a purpose. Designed objects are fashioned by intelligent agents who have a goal in mind, and their creations reflect the purpose for which they were created. We infer the existence of an intelligent designer by observing certain effects that are habitually associated with conscious activity. Rational agents often detect the prior activity of other designing minds by the character of the effects they leave behind. A machine is made for specific goals and organized, given that the operation of each part is dependent on the being properly arranged with respect to every other part and to the system as a whole. Encoded messages and instructional blueprints indicate an intelligent source, and so does apply mathematical principles and logic gates. As will be demonstrated in the next episodes, we find each of the mentioned signs in nature.